Greetings and welcome everyone to our very first diverse discussion webinar with Ascending Tribe, where we are going to be discussing what is shamanism, what makes a shaman, who is a shaman, what is a shaman. So if you don't know me already, I'm Alexandra, I'm the creator of Ascending Tribe, and I'm also hosting the diverse discussions tonight. As most of you may or may not know, this topic of discussion was chosen as I came across, just scrolling through Instagram, came across an online course that said become a shaman, or how to become a shaman, or take this online course. And it seems that people are really attaching to this label of being a shaman without really understanding or having the proper experience, knowledge and awareness of what it really means to offer shamanic healing. And I know that I can speak for all the panelists here as well to say that we really feel that it's truly vital before carrying out any type of healing work, that the intention behind any form of healing is based on authentic love and heart-centered frequency, as opposed to being based on a trend to monetize of vulnerable people seeking genuine support and guidance. Yeah, it does kind of seem like that is happening a little bit. It's important to expand our minds and perceptions around shamanism and shamanic healing as we are collectively going through a transformation, and therefore everything else in our society is also changing. Our ideologies are changing, our beliefs, the culture that we are living in is changing, and we're evolving, and discussion always sparks a high level of consciousness, which obviously closes the gap between the separation and bringing us closer together. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel to you. I'd like to introduce our expert panel who have been divinely selected. And when I say divinely selected, I mean, they were drawn to me and I was drawn to them. So it just kind of happened that way. And they're here to give their individual perspectives on this topic based on their own experience, their knowledge and their wisdom. So introducing David Sonsino, who has over 10 years of experience using ancient healing methods alongside the sacred plant medicine ayahuasca, and he's dialing in from Mexico today.
Hello.
We have, sorry, go on.
No, I was just giving welcome everybody.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, we have Julian Vane, who is an independent British scholar and author with over 3 decades of experience within the esoteric culture. Then we have Talia Santo, who has been holding sacred space for over 10 years and is a clinical hypnotherapist and shamanic sound healer. We have J. Cat James, who is a shamanic healer and mentor with over 40 years of experience in spiritual development and conscious living. And finally, we have Krish Saroy, who is a clairvoyant and medicine man with over 30 years experience mentoring, guiding and healing people. So before we begin, please feel free to comment in the chat box below. There's also a Q&A box if you wish to ask any questions directly to the panel towards the end of the discussion during the Q&A session. And so, yeah, well, let's get started. So the first question I have is, how would you describe a shaman and their purpose or their role? Julian, how would you answer this?
Thank you, Alex. So the word itself is likely to come from the Tungusic languages in an area that we could broadly call Siberia, right? So that's where the word shaman comes to us from. And it appears in European culture in, I think, the 17th century from kind of Dutch explorers who are encountering what they identify as a kind of group of people or a class of individuals, a bunch of people who they see as having these similar kind of activities. So the word itself probably has roots of things like to know. So it's to be to have some kind of knowledge or expertise, and it can be thought of as a religious practitioner or a priest. There are similarities and overlaps there, but there are also distinctions to be made. Probably in terms of the way anthropologists and ethnographers write about shamanism, we're really talking about a bunch of people who have a kind of an interaction with a spirit realm in some sense, and their interaction with that spirit realm is something which they do often for the benefit of other members of their community. So Eliade, who wrote Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, which is like one of the benchmark books. It's not perfect, but it says a lot of important stuff. talks about the shaman being someone who does two things. They go into a trance or altered state of awareness. They perhaps they might travel in that altered state of awareness through some imaginal or astral or other dimension. And they do that for two purposes, essentially. They do that for divination, finding out about the past, the present, the future, and they do it for healing. So that's a kind of ethnographic description. And then that kind of changes over time. It becomes broader, because basically what happens is European or Euro-American ethnographers, people who are interested in other cultures, kind of look at this, and then they start encountering what they see as something very similar in the Americas in particular. And they look at this and they go, okay, there's a kind of similarity here. So the word starts off as representing the work of a particular group of people in the Siberian region, so kind of northeastern Asia, and it then becomes generalized out as a kind of a bit of a catch-all term. And I guess one of the purposes of us here is to explore that, because as with many words, it changes over time. Its meaning and its subtle variations change in context of culture, the way that they're used, or perhaps misused in other situations. So that's like a brief, like the Wikipedia entry on this is actually kind of pretty solid. Other writers to go to, people like Ronald Hutton, his book on shamanism.
Absolutely.
There's Eliada's work as well is like really important in terms of understanding the story. So starts off as these people who work in altered states of awareness, and they work in these altered states of awareness. They do various things in those ecstatic states, let's call them. That's what Eliada uses as a word. And they do something that's typically of benefit for members of their community. Healing and divination are the classic examples, but there are many others.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Tyler, would you like to add to this?
He kind of covered all the stuff that I already know. Yeah, so a shaman is a Siberian word for, a medicine man or woman, somebody who, like Julian said, heals and helps people, the community.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, Chloe, you're really quiet.
Oh, hello.
We can hear, but it's just really, really quiet.
Well, that is that better? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better, yeah?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so again, so it's a Siberian word for like a medicine man or woman, which has then broadened out into all different cultures, and they've all got their own representation of what their medicine men and women are, and their own rituals and stuff like that. And it is now, we're going into the new age, and it is, we need to sort of define in some way what it means to us, and what culture we want to create for this that's coming. It's being birthed. So yeah, in my sort of view, it's like a mentor, somebody who supports people's spiritual journeys, who yet again goes into altered states. They would need to be able to connect and sort of draw out certain stuff anyway for the community. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thanks. And David, do you want to elaborate?
Well, I would like to say something that I think like him. Dennis McKenna said one time, a good shaman is there to feel the settings, to set the context, and then step out and let the plant or whatever medicine do its work, because the teacher is the plant in ayahuasca case or some mushrooms or something, no? And we tend to forget, we think that we all have a power, we all are shamans, but in the context that we call a shaman, it's very rare to find really a shaman, that with this context of that they know they know the know-how of the plants, which plants cure this or that. And also, a good shaman needs, like Dennis McKenna said, you have to set the settings, you have to set the context, and step out. Let each person to do their work, because actually each one of us is doing their work. A shaman, well, a facilitator or a shaman or something is there just to hold space, and that everything around in the surroundings is nice, and just to hold the context in there.
Perfect.
I think shaman is like acting or performing music also. You know, it's like it's a training combined, you know, with music or dance or static dance or magic passes. That's in my understanding for shaman.
Thank you for sharing that. So can anyone be a shaman, or are they divinely chosen? JCat, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, sure. I think in some cultures, yes, they're chosen by their tribe, and it's almost handed down to each one. I spent some time in America, in New Mexico, and spent time with a medicine man there, and it was handed down through his family. So definitely, and also spent time in Nepal where there was a whole family. The elder lady shaman had 3 sons, and all the tradition was handed down to the males in the family, and they learnt from the family lineage. But I don't think that's the case all the time. I think shamanism now is coming into the world, coming into the West, and it's a way of life. It's for me, it's a way of life. It's for me, it's about me connecting to nature and to symbolically working with power animals and working with music and Icaros and medicine plants, and working through that heart center with the drum. And for me, it's almost like my religion. It's who I am. I define myself not as a shaman, but as shamanism being my way of life. And I think that a lot of us in the West now are wanting to express ourselves through shamanism, through Mother Nature, through connecting up to finding our true nature and our authentic selves. And I think it's really important that we do that in the times that we've got now ahead of us. And that there's a community that's evolving, and it's so beautiful. And I think we're all part of that. And those connections and what's going on around the world. I mean, I've been working now for many decades, working with this way of life, and I'm working with a lot of young people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, people just starting shamanism in their 70s, and it's just beautiful that they're coming back to that. So I think everyone should live a shamanic life, because it's a beautiful way to live. So yeah, that's my take on it, Alex.
Thank you. That was so lovely. Thank you. Krish, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think JCat said a lot, but I kind of want to really pick up on what Julian said in the first question, which is, you know, it really comes down to what does this word mean, and, you know, what do we apply it to? So I love what JCat said about, you know, almost being like a lifestyle and a philosophy, and I think that's broadly speaking true. I mean, there's so much zeitgeist right now about reconnecting with nature. You know, in the UK, even the BBC on Country File did a whole program recently on nature and healing, which mainstream, you know, UK media doing that is kind of almost unheard of. But I think that there is this kind of, beyond that, coming back to what Julian was saying about this kind of class of people, and, you know, there is a practice in here as well, and, you know, there is power that kind of comes with that, you know, and, you know, to go all Spider-Man on us, you know, with power comes responsibility, kind of thing, as it were. So, you know, I believe that as human beings, we're all divine. You know, I believe we're emanations of a divine source anyway. So what we are gifted, we're all gifted in this. But is everyone called to be what we might classically call a shaman, i.e., someone who is a healer or a counselor for a tribe? Well, in the West, we don't really exist in a tribal structure or anything like that. We don't have, you know, rites of passage, that kind of stuff. So in that real core sense, you know, I do feel like there's probably a sense of calling that comes with it. You know, different people have different gifts, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of probably where I'd go.
Yeah, thank you. Talia, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, again, the same as what the guys touched on is that we are all our own shaman. We've all got the ability to alchemize and heal ourselves. We're just on the path of remembering that we are and how to do it. But you know, for people who are feeling the calling to hold space for other people, and from that perspective, it can be a divinely sort of inspired thing. It could be like a mental breakdown, a near-death experience. It can be sort of like a spiritual, like awakening type thing. That is common, you know, for people that are divinely chosen. But like I said, there's sorry, I've lost my train of thought a little bit. We're all shamans at the end of the day, and we are all divine. We've all got that spark of divinity within us. We just need to awaken it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So do you have to be a shaman to hold shamanic ceremonies? Julian, do you want to take this one?
Julian, you're on mute.
For reminding me. Well done. Okay, so again, we go back to these terms. You know, do you have to be this thing to do this thing that's associated with this thing? I mean, ultimately, what matters is that people do stuff with a good heart and an informed head. Yeah. So, like, if we think of a shamanic ceremony, and let's think of one that is outside of the use of entheogens, because certainly a lot of the cultures that emerge with the first shamanism, to use the word, don't primarily use entheogenic plants or other substances as part of their practice. They primarily use performance, like what David was saying about music, and they use drum, and that's the kind of style. So do you have to be a shaman to perhaps work with a friend to give them a drum inner world journey? Well, no, you just have to be a kind, thoughtful, caring individual who wants to facilitate your friend. That's what you have to be. Like, everything else is additional. Like, you don't have to have like some elaborate hat with the feathers on and stuff to be able to do this stuff well. What matters is that if you're going to work with shamanic technologies, and we can include within that things like entheogenic plants, you have to have a good heart and an informed head. So you have to know the substance you're using, you have to know the dosage, you have to know the contraindications, you have to understand the legal framework and the cultural background, you have to be able to prepare and hold a space successfully, and to iterate again what David was relaying from Dennis McKenna, you also have to kind of be able to get out the way, because it's not about you. Yeah, we have this thing about where we talk about the shaman is the healer. Nonsense. The person who is being healed is the healer. They may be, as Talia said, their own shaman. When I cut myself, if I cut myself and I injure my body and I go to seek medical attention, they will be able, if they're good medics, to be able to clean and dress the wounds. They might even be advanced medics in the Western context and be able to suggest foods I might want to eat or practices I might want to do to help the healing. But I have to do the healing. I have to do the work. So the shaman's role is perhaps to create the performative space, whether that's holding it with the drum or music or whatever it happens to be, the shamanic technology, and then to withdraw to some extent to allow that person's process to unfold without turning the whole shebang into their story. Forgive me, David, for speaking so quickly. I'm sorry. I will try and slow down. So for me, it matters. Do you have to be a shaman to use shamanic technologies? If we include shamanic technologies as entheogenic plants and so on, no, you don't have to be this thing. What you have to be is you have to be a caring, thoughtful person, and to tread lightly and to learn as much as you can from other skilled individuals, and then to find your way to do this. Talia's point about, you know, like, the label is of no consequence, really. Anyone who gets fixated on the label probably doesn't really, you know, it's a thing, right? Particularly if they come from, like I do, from a dislocated European, you know, white British working class kind of background, right? So I don't have like a shamanic tradition to lock into. So for me to call myself a shaman is for me, it's problematic, right? Because of issues like cultural appropriation and all that kind of stuff. I have been found myself being described as that by other people, because I have found myself where I'm setting up a space and holding that and hopefully doing a good job and allowing those people to do their thing and not making, I like to think, not making the story about me. So in that sense, you know, I'm grateful for the appreciation shown in the presentation of that word to me. I use shamanic technologies. I use those, the drum and performative stuff and divination tools and entheogenic substances to do those works. So I engage with that territory. But yeah, good heart in this, clear mind in this. That's what you need.
And to be clear, Julian, the hat with the feathers does help.
Yeah, mate, I've got a hat with feathers. It has to be said, you know. I mean, who has it these days? Who
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people need the hat in the feathers. It convinces them that you are, you know, what they want you to be, and then they can do their own inner work then based on their perception of who they want you to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love that. I love that analogy of the healing as well. If you were to cut yourself, because I thought that was very, very clear point. David, how do you feel about this question?
Well, I think I think like Julian, you know, we all are shamans, and we all can guide the ceremony, but not we all have the skills to do it. You need to have a very good heart, an open heart, because, you know, like I can talk in my case, like in a ceremony of ayahuasca, there could be catharsis. So you need to have this empathy to be able to go to people and let them know that you are there, so they don't feel scared, so they don't feel lost or something. They know somebody's there to take care of them, you know, even though, you know, the name shaman, it could be a facilitator or whatever. Like Julian says, some people call me shaman, and for me it's an honor to call me like that, but I can never call myself a shaman. I would be very skeptic if I meet somebody and they would say I'm a shaman. You know, it's like, where is the ego is talking there. Is not. So I'm very much agree with Julian. You need to have an open heart, and, you know, life gives you all these, and the skills to be a shaman or a facilitator is just to know that you are assisting somebody in their own healing, not thinking that you are going to heal them, because you don't do the work. You just assist them to do their own works. With the presence of different spirits, in this case, spirits of plants, they come and they help you to heal yourself, but you do your own work. The shaman doesn't do the work. He just set the context, the settings. Yes, I can play drums, I can play tuning forks, I can play bowling, healing bowls, all these instruments that is going to trigger all these sounds, and it's like a caramel to your mind. So it's going to take you there. But yes, you need to have the skills. We all can be shamans. We all are shamans. We have the same power to heal ourselves, but you need to have the skills in case A or case B happen. What would you do? You know, and also practice gives you that.
Thank you. Did you want to add?
Yeah. I'm really with both what Julia and David said here. I think it really comes back to this notion of, I really like what Julian said about, you know, the words kind of almost inconsequential, and you know, if you kind of say I'm a shaman, is that like saying like I'm a maths teacher or I'm a policeman, you know? Because in the tribal cultures that, you know, Julian referring to, in like, you know, in Siberia, or even kind of like that kind of role elsewhere, it's, you know, I doubt you'd get people running around even in the tribe going, I'm a shaman. You know, it really comes down to intent. It comes down to the good heartedness, and you know, and there are, we're talking about techniques here, So, you know, anyone can use a technique, just in the same way that anyone can use a hammer, but you have to have the right intent and the right skill to use that tool, as it were. That's kind of what I would say.
Thank you. So what does a shamanic ceremony typically look like and feel like? What could one expect to experience if they haven't had this experience yet? JCat, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, gosh, so many different types of ceremonies. I can only talk from my sort of holding space and ceremonies. So if I was holding a cacao ceremony and working with a plant medicine, I would be setting up the space, the quarters. I would be making it a sacred space in terms of preparing the space beforehand so that it was smudged and it was clear of energies. And so that when the participants start to come in and people start to come in for their personal healing or their journey, it's all about them. It's all about making that space loving, a space that they feel they can be held in, a space they can feel safe in, and that they're supported by what goes on in that space. So my ceremony would have a little bit like David was saying about having, my main instrument would be the drum. I would be working with the drum, the beat of the drum, and I'd be working with different smells, different vibrational sounds like crystal bowls, gongs, all sorts of tuning forks, sometimes singing Icaros, singing through, you know, connecting up to my power animals and just holding the space so that you can allow these people to have the experience or whatever the healing that they've come for, that they can be their own healers and that they have the enlightenment and they have that space and time to go in, to go deep and to work through whatever it is that they've come for. So yeah, I mean, all sorts of incense, sage, candles, and just generally making sure that they feel safe and that they can open up and surrender to whatever it is that the experiences that they need to have in that space, and to just assist and be there for them. So that would be typically one of my ceremonials, but if it's a one-to-one, it's a little bit different, same setup, and it would be open in the quarters. I would always do a ritual, so it'd be very ritualistic for me before I start the ceremony, and yeah, that would be my take on my type of ceremony. But I've been in different ceremonies around the world and they're all different, so yeah, that's it.
Thanks for sharing that. Krish, did you want to share your type of ceremony or what kind of shamanic ceremonies you hold?
Yeah, I'm really glad JCat kind of made the distinction there between kind of the one-to-one and that kind of thing, because very often for me, I'm doing work with someone one-to-one, I don't even think of it as ceremony. It's, you know, it's an interaction, and so the thing is, there is a container of energy that I set up in common, and I think that's something that's common for all kind of ritual ceremony, that there is a container of sacred space. The kind of ceremonies I do, the kind of tradition I kind of come from is kind of what Michael Harlan might call shamanism, but really kind of revival druidry in the UK. And the truth is, we have no idea what, you know, druids did thousands of years ago in the British Isles. But the revival sense is very much about being outdoors. The rituals are very often done around different segments of the year. So whether that's the cross-quarter days or the equinoxes and solstices. And they're really about marking times of the year and really about marking so, like, for example, we're coming up to the summer solstice. Of course, it's the time of the, you know, in the northern hemisphere, it's the longest day. So it's really about celebrating the light of the sun and what that means for us as individuals, both in the turning of the year, but also in the turning of our intentions and the turning of our lives, as it were. So it's really about connecting people in with what's going on in nature at that point in the year. that's kind of where I tend to go with ceremony and ritual.
I love that. Thank you so much. I love the variation. And as I'm going to come on to David, would you like to share yours? Because I know that's going to be quite different as well.
Well, me, I held ceremonies during the night because ayahuasca works. You can open up your third eye with when it's dark. So that's why we make it during the night, to be able to open up our pineal gland or third eye. So yeah, I do a lot of work prior to the ceremony. You know, I set up everything here to be nice and comfortable for everybody. And then I ask everybody to arrive earlier, like 2 hours earlier prior to start the ceremony, so we can all know each other and break the ice a little bit, you know, because in ayahuasca ceremony, once when we take the ayahuasca, we don't talk, we don't touch each other, we turn off the lights and the magic starts to begin there, you know. But yes, I prepare myself also with the bowl, crystal bowl healings, Tibetan bowl healings, gongs, Palo Santo, smoke, or incense, sorry. And I prepare, and once when we start the ceremony, everybody is already calm, you know, because a lot of people, they come with a lot of fears. So I give prior the ceremony, I give a like 1 hour talk about this could happen, this could not happen. I give them tools in case of this or that happens, how can they go out, or, and I'm always there, you know, very aware of what is going on with everybody. I take the medicine with them so I can be in the same trance as them and I can feel them. So really, it's really very nice. By the time everything starts, you never know what is going to happen because each one of us reacts different, and we never know what is going to happen. But usually they are beautiful ceremonies. Yes, I have been having cases with the catharsis or this or that happen, but it's part of my job, you know, to go through that. And I have been learning a lot in these 10 years how to handle more difficult cases, let's call them like that, you know. But yes, in general, my ceremonies are held with love.
Thank you. So there's a lot of different labels that we can use for shamanism and being a shaman. So are there alternative names or labels for a shaman depending on the culture or the tradition? Julian, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting. There's many cultures have ritual specialists who perhaps work with altered states of awareness and spirits to do those kinds of things, like healing, like divination, those kinds of practices. And you'll find those in many cultures. You'll also find some cultures, the culture commonly referred to as the Huicholi people, for example, where like 50% of the adult men are Maracame, are you know, the guys with the feathers in their hats, yeah, the shaman kind of characters, you know. So it's a hugely variable thing. When we talk about shamanism, we talk about like the words that we can draw from other cultures and kind of go, oh, this looks a little bit like this, right? So we can definitely think about those things, and there are many other words that we can use. And we touched on this word, medicine person, medicine man, medicine woman. So in the story of Western Europe, we had a tradition of what are often referred to by academics as service magicians, or sometimes cunning folk. So cunning folk or service magicians were essentially, in the sense that we're using the word here, shaman. Yeah, they were people who you went to get a spell, to get some magic, to get some healing. And interestingly, of course, not simply for healing, but also for protection and occasionally for harming others, right? So we have to think about this whole field is quite broad, you know, lots of the characters identified as doing shamanism by ethnographers in South America were waging magical wars with other shaman, either real or imagined. Okay, so let's, you know, the words are very flexible. In my own story, there's a word which is witch. Now, the word witch, historically, for most of its time, has meant a bad magic user, a person who does a bad spell on someone, yeah, either inadvertently, like with the evil eye, or deliberately, maliciously. The word witch has come to mean, it's come to be a signifier for feminist power. It's come to be a signifier for people who want to live closer to the rhythms of the earth, the very much like the story of Druidry that Chris was talking about. And it's also a word that has kind of had this this association with the goddess religion of Wicca, right? So these words change an awful lot. So I would think there are plenty of examples we could go to, but it's probably not wise for us to say shaman equals this other word in a culture equals this other word in a culture, you know? Yeah. The practitioners of what I would describe as someone who comes from the Western magical tradition of the magical arts, right? So a practitioner of magic, what academics today call a service magician in the historical kind of story, those people can be found in almost every cultural setting. You know, even in cultures where magic is not seen as is very much frowned upon. So we can find lots of other kind of words, and we have to be very careful with the words. So, for example, when British people in particular went over and started colonizing and extracting the wealth of places like Africa, they came across a class of people, a group of people that they described as witch doctors. Now, interestingly, these days, when we think of a witch doctor, we think that the doctor is the witch. That is to say, they're a magic user. And they're not. Historically, the witch doctor is the doctor you go to when you've had witchcraft done on you. So they are the doctor to stop the effect of the witch. So we have to be incredibly careful with these words. It's probably more useful, rather than trying to grab them from other cultures where we may end up with something just as confusing as the word shaman, that we pick something either that's mythic and reconstructed, like druid, or we come up with these kind of terms like facilitator or space holder, words like this. And we don't necessarily rule out the word shaman because it has come to be a commonly understood term. You know, we've gathered together today to talk about this thing because we have a shared kind of overlapping interest in this kind of field. But probably we need to create new words rather than go and find other ones and try and reimagine them. Equally, we have to understand that words change all the time. Yeah, so the word gay, many different changes in its meaning. You know, if I say, oh, that was an awesome thing that you just said, do I really mean it struck awe into me? No, words change all the time. So let's not go and grab another one from another culture and find an equivalence. Let's build new ones, or let's just reimagine these things and really own the fact we are reimagining them, just like with Druidry. Yeah, we can be druids. We can talk about being a druid or walking the druid path. And yet, as Christian said, we know precious little about the druids.
Thank you. That was really insightful, Julian. Thank you. Chris, would you like to add on to this?
I don't think there's a lot more to add. I really like what Julian said there. One of the things that's just striking me though is, you know, the previous question was about kind of ceremony and all that. And I have several friends who are native Hawaiians, and again, another tribal culture, and they make you know, and that troublesome word that we often hear from Hawaii is kahuna. Now, the thing with that is, so one distinction they have in Hawaiian culture is they have a distinction between a kahu, which is someone who leads ceremony, and that's what they do. They know the ins and outs of the arrangements of ceremony, but but not medicine ceremony or anything. The kind of things I'm talking about the rituals that a community goes through. But then you have the kahuna, which is a class of people. But you can have a kahuna hula dancer, or a kahuna boat builder, or a kahuna anana, which is the warring kahuna, if you like. A kahuna there actually kind of means, the translation's not good, but it means kind of person with power, so that the person who can wield mana or life force or power in different ways. So you could be like, you could be a writer, but you could be a kahuna, and that would be, that would be different to someone who carves boats, but equally your boats may be magical because you're a kahuna. So, again, as Julian was saying, I think it's really troublesome to pull words from different things because it refers to so many different things. And that Hawaiian tradition is just a watch place for me where that really comes to pass, as it were.
Thank you. J-Cat, do you want to add anything to this?
I don't think there's much to add, really. I think, like, we're talking about names and labels again, and what comes to mind for me is the word mystic, the words witch, the word sage, the word seers. Are they shaman? Is it another word for it? I don't know. They're all labels, but I think there's wisdom in them all, and I think I don't really have much more to say on that, really.
No, that's fine.
Personally, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add something, Alex?
Yeah,
sorry, just thinking about this, think about like that role that a shaman might play in a community. So that kind of notion of a wisdom keeper, a sage, a healer, an advisor, if you like. We don't have that set up in Western society, but we're starting to get things now that may fulfill some of those roles. So I do, by day, I'm an executive coach. Now, the thing is, I'm also a clairvoyant. So I do see, when I'm coaching a leader, I see power animals, I see angels, that kind of stuff. But the role I'm playing is as an advisor, it is as it is that kind of similar kind of role. But again, the words are kind of, not necessarily easy, but as we kind of come into, the 21st century and all that kind of thing, we are kind of inventing these other roles because we don't have them from a tribal setup. So whether that's, coach, counselor, I don't know, marriage therapist, I don't know, but they play some of those roles.
Thank you. That's a really, really interesting aspect. The next question, I know that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I think it's really, really important to kind of clarify, because obviously there's a lot of misconceptions that being a shaman or working with a shaman, that you have to work with plant medicine or psychoactive plant medicines. So do all shamans work with plant medicines or psychoactive medicines? Krish, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've been doing different forms of what I might call shamanic practice since about 1990. So that's what, 30 years. And I've only ever done 2 plant ceremonies. And only one of those was psychoactive. The other was Kambo, which obviously is not a psychoactive thing. So for me, my work doesn't always involve like a drum or, or trance work, because through other the clairvoyance or whatever, I connect in with the spirit realms kind of quite readily and quite easily. So I think there's, I do a lot of work as a coach with people from Silicon Valley and, plant medicine and going down to Peru and doing kind of ayahuasca whilst kind of exchanging business cards and all that kind of thing. It's become a bit of a trend. It's become a bit de rigueur. So I think when a lot of people think about shamanism these days, there's this automatic association that there has to be plant medicine involved, but certainly that's never been part of my practice. I've definitely seen the advantages of it and all that kind of thing, but it's not been part of my practice for the best part of 30 years.
Yeah. David, how do you feel about this? Because obviously we know that you work with ayahuasca.
Yes, I think you don't need to work with just with plants to be a healer or a shaman or a facilitator, That's for the person that is looking to heal through that plant or the mushroom, but no, not necessarily. You can be a shaman and just singing to somebody can heal them, singing mantras. So no, you don't need to have a psychoactive plants to be a shaman.
And Talia, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, the same. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Whether a shaman or a medicine man or woman wants to use plant medicine is, again, it's down to their unique calling. It's what their sole purpose is. So no, you don't. I mean, ways to facilitate it without plant medicine would again be drumming, chanting. Sound is really, really a good, an excellent tool for it. And at the end of the day, it's, you know, whether you're working with a plant, so the plant has got a spirit. So if a shaman's working with someone with plant medicine, they're working with the spirit, but you don't necessarily need the plant to be able to work with the spirit. You know, the same way that you can work, you know, with crystals. It's not plant medicine, but it's still a spirit. So it's still a channel for that energy. And we are, you know, we all are, you know, but that would be how somebody who's not working with plant medicine would, sorry, I'm going fast, David, again, would facilitate, just be the channel for spirit.
Perfect, thank you. And something that I really think it's important to touch on is, how do we discern who is a genuine shaman with the right intentions? Because obviously there are a lot of people now calling themselves shaman. How do you know if they're a genuine shaman or their intentions are genuine? JCat, do you want to take this one?
Yes, probably I would say go with a recommendation and go with somebody that's been recommended and that you know they're good people to work with. I think, you know, if you've got a calling to go and have a healing or go and see a shaman, I think it's a good idea, you know, to speak to that individual and try and connect up to that individual and see if there's a rapport there, or get a feeling for it, get a gut feeling about it. I think it's really difficult, you know, to make the choice if you haven't got a recommendation. But I would say that it would be better for somebody to know somebody to recommend onto. In most cases, that's what happens with me, is that people recommend. And I think, you know, when somebody's working from their heart, or somebody that's working from you know, a good place that really wants healing, if you connect up with them, if you know, you can go with your gut feeling on that. But recommendation, really, for me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
And Julian, how do you feel about this?
I would certainly echo JCat that a recommendation is helpful. I would suggest that people, when they are looking for healing, particularly mindful of the fact that the healing is their work, that they do proceed carefully, because you're in a vulnerable kind of situation, like you're looking for someone to help you, right? And the vast majority of humans on the planet will do that to the best of their ability as much as they can. There are a small number of people who are in a place where they're currently not doing that very well at all. Let's call it like that, yeah? So a recommendation is helpful. Connecting with communities of support, so people perhaps in good kind of online spaces that people might find. And the other thing I would suggest would be to consider doing it yourself. So if you wanted to take an inner world journey, for example, with the drum, you might well have a friend who would be skilled enough to help you with this. Yeah, you might well be able to do some of this entirely autonomously with a pre-recorded track. If you have a small group of friends and you want to explore entheogenics, there's no reason why you can't learn how to cultivate mushrooms and do this for yourself. And the reason I would suggest that that's a possible thing to consider is that the impact that people from Euro-American culture have going into some areas in, you know, the Americas in particular, South America specifically, can be really problematic. So you need to really be aware of things like the story of Maria Sabina and what went on with, you know, that lovely lady who gifted back to the European world the knowledge of the sacred mushroom. Like, her life was made incredibly difficult by the fact that all her address details became known and people flocked to her door. So I would think about, well, why is it you feel that you need to go somewhere to find the shaman? Maybe there is one to be found closer at hand. Maybe that could even be you. Maybe you just need to connect with a community of practice rather than to find the person who's going to help you, because the person who's going to help you isn't going to help you. What matters is the community around you, the context, which, going back to Jay's point, is why recommendation is very helpful. because you can go and find something. I can put into Google whatever I want to put in and find a thing. But really what I want is I want good people who I can trust to say, this guy here, David, he's sound, he knows how to run the show. He's been doing this for like a decade plus. He's a good person. And I can put you also in touch with another person who's also sat with this guy and rates him. Yeah, so it's very much like you would do with TripAdvisor, to some extent. And perhaps that's even an appropriate metaphor for, what's going on here. But yeah, you've got to, when I say do your research, what I don't mean is just do your research, like reach out to other people who you trust. This is the same with anything. Starting a relationship with someone or going into business with someone. It's all of those kind of techniques you'd use. By all means, be thoughtful about synchronicities, found little opportunities, things the universe puts in your way, but also treat those lightly, particularly if you're in quite a kind of vulnerable and needy state, like backtrack from it if necessary, do some other work to support yourself while you look around. Don't necessarily rush to the first thing that you find in the Google search.
Thank you, that was perfect. And Tylia, how do you feel that how people should kind of discern meeting shamans?
My first thing would be, how do they make you feel? I always like to meet people or speak to them, and you should be asking your question, do they make me feel calm? Do I feel safe to open up and share what's going on with me? The feeling center is a real indicator of if they are resonating at the same frequency as you are. So that would definitely be my my first point of call. Next to that would be, have they got their shit together? Are they walking the walk, or just talking the talk? Like Terence McKenna said, the shaman is not only the madman, but he's the madman who's healed himself. So often their story would indicate to you whether it's something similar, maybe what you're going through. So maybe get a bit of background from them. Yeah, but I mean, even in the concept of, the shamans that maybe don't have the right intentions, the interesting point is that actually, even if people are navigated towards them, there may be some lessons for them in that experience as well. So it is all divine in the grand scheme of things. It's just all a divine play. And yeah, but my first initial thing would be feel it out.
Perfect, thank you. So what are other methods, familiars or tools that we can expect to experience with a shaman? Ty, do you want to take this one again?
A minute, what was that? What traditional tools?
Yeah, what are like other methods or tools that a shaman could use?
So I'm very, very much led by intuition and heart, and I have done some shamanic training, but I don't always remember it. I just really feel into it, and so I can't put a name on the tools and things that I use. It just comes through. But I suppose if you was to think of like tools, my number one tool is the shikapa, is the leaf rattle, which I'm going to plug it as well. I make them and I sell them. Next to that would potentially be the drum, which Jay does. She decorates and sells them. So yeah, it would just be, yeah, for me, it's intuition and heart. But I know that everybody and every medicine man and woman will have their own sort of tools and modalities that they use.
Yeah,
unique and individual to them and their soul's calling to be of service to others.
Perfect, thank you. And Julian, are there any other methods or tools that you would say that a shaman would use, or do you use yourself?
I guess, in my own practice, I've worked with a number of different entheogenic medicines, and they kind of like different things. If we speak in an animist, spiritist kind of register, then I would say that their spirits prefer different environments and different food. So thinking about stuff like that, I remember doing a sequence of ceremonies with a group of very experienced practitioners using a substance called ketamine, which is an anesthetic. And in those practices, what we were doing was we were basically wrapping people in like we were actually kind of using like a plastic wrap to go around them. And then we were opening them up so that they were experiencing this unfolding. Now that sounds pretty weird and bizarre, but if you go back to the little we know about Druidry, one of the things that we know about Druidry is that Druids had a process of people going into trance states wrapped in a bull's hide with a stone on their chest. So one thing you can think about is you can think about like initiation practices. All initiation practices, rather like what David was talking about, they involve going into the darkness, going into this kind of experience where things dissolve, and then coming out into the light, out into these, out into this new dawn, out into this new form of reality. So there are innumerable ways that a ceremony might look. Whether we describe it as shamanic or not is kind of open to interpretation. But there are many of the processes that we go through of, for example, going through this idea of like a darkened process and then an illumination, just like when we're born. Like a lot of shamanic practice kind of echoes things that we have in other domains. What I mean by that is, let's imagine a shamanic ritual where we want to feel that we have let go of something that no longer serves us. So we may have a bowl of liquid, and as we pour the liquid on the earth, so we let go of the thing that no longer serves us. So what we do is we create a metaphor. So a lot of shamanic practice, a lot of ceremonial practice generally is about creating metaphors and often acting in special ways. So having a drink with your friends is one thing, making a toast is another, smashing the bottle on the side of the ship is still another. They all involve alcohol, but the orientation towards them is very different. Yeah. So as Talia was saying, the other thing is sound. A lot of what we could call shamanic practice, including right the way back to the Tungus people and to the Siberian roots, involves sound, it involves song, it involves percussion, it involves those kinds of things, because the kind of creatures that we are, we respond very, very well to that. We can get ourselves into very, very interesting altered states, trance states with those sorts of things. So the most important tool is this ability to alter our state of consciousness and to do so in a curated space that fits the spirit that we're working with, whether that's ketamine, whether that's ayahuasca, whether that's LSD, MDMA, whatever it happens to be, or the spirit that we're working with in terms of the place, the spirit of the time that Chris was talking about as we're coming up to midsummer into the Northern Hemisphere. So there's a whole range of different stuff. You really don't want us to list the list.
That's so funny. Thank you. Krish, did you want to add anything to that?
I knew you were going to come to me after Julian's very eloquent description. I think I'd just go back to kind of what Ty says, you know, like Julian, I've kind of come from, you know, I've been very eclectic in my spirituality for my whole life. You know, my father was a Hindu, so, you know, I kind of started off trying to read sacred texts when I was a kid, and the sad thing is I probably had a stronger understanding of the Bhagavad Gita when I was 8 than I do at 49, which is kind of quite sad, really. But so that means I've collected a lot of tools along the way, and a bit like Ty was saying, you know, it's gonna. I think this is true of any shamanic practitioner. You draw on the tools that you're on the toolkit, based on the person that's with you, or based on the intention of the community or the ceremony you're working with. So yeah, I'm with Julian. You don't want the list because it's a new rule, but it's a heart-led, spirit-led, intuition-led thing.
Perfect, thank you. And so do you feel that it's important that a shaman is aware of the location for holding shamanic ceremonies, and that the land is respected and honored? JCat, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a big question. I mean, yes, I mean, a lot of shamans in the world do have sacred places where they do rituals. I mean, the particular one that I spent time with in Nepal, I went to their home and they had sacred land there, and they had different areas in and around their home where they would go and sit with the ancestors. So it would be like a little room, a little hut, which was specific for connecting up to their ancestors and going into a ritual with that. And they would hold ceremonies in one particular place where I had a water ceremony performed on me, with drums and with the elder and with the three sons. So yes, there are sacred places that we can work from, but I can make my space sacred wherever I am. You know, for me, it's about, if I'm doing, like Kresh was saying about the one-to-ones, it's about making my space as sacred and ritualistic as possible. So I would prepare that space to be sacred, with my heart, with smudging, with sound, with any ways that I can to make that space. Like if I was putting on my I don't know, I used to do hairdressing years ago. I would go into hairdressers and cut hair, but when I go into my ritual space, I'm putting the clothes on, I'm feeding it out, I'm dressing the room. It's an extension of me, and I'm creating that space so that we can hold whatever needs to be held in that. And like David says, around just holding the love and the heart space there, really, for that individual to be able to go wherever they need to go to heal themselves. Because for me, it is about agreeing with a lot of the panel have said about this healing that we're seeking, and we're trying to, you know, make these conscious decisions in our life and fulfill some of our purpose. It is about us as facilitators holding that space for that individual to be able to fill that out with them, and to help them if we need to, or to stand back if we need to. So yeah, that's what I feel about the sacred space, basically.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That was really insightful. David, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this question? Do you feel that do you consciously choose certain land or certain space? How do you feel about this?
Well, I think every place is sacred. You know, I cannot say that somebody's house in Tibet is more sacred than my sanctuary here. You know, you make the place sacred. There's places that they have different energies, yes. But the sacred place, you make it yourself. Yes, my temple is my body. That's my sacred place. So it's a very ambiguous question, because everywhere is sacred. What's not sacred? It's like, I believe in God. And when they say to me, what is God? What is not God? That's my point of view. The same with sacred, with different energies. Yes, I can be in Peru, or I can be in Tibet, or I can be in India, and each place has different energies. Like if you held a ceremony during a full moon or a new moon, or a solstice or equinox, you know, there's different energies. But a sacred place, it could be any place sacred. You make your sacred place.
Can I add to that, Alex?
Yes, of course.
Like this is what I'm feeling into, is you can create ritual and you can create the magic wherever you are. You can unplug the bath and just watch it washing away, and imagine all your, you know, negative energy just washing down the drain pump. You can brush your teeth and imagine spitting out all that resentment that you've got for your other half for not doing the washing up this morning. You know, you can create it wherever you are. And I think it's a really beautiful idea to start using our imagination, you know, not shamans, everybody, and creating ritual and ceremony in everyday life, because that is what life is. It is a celebration, and it is divine. And this is the age that we're coming into.
Can I add to that as well, Alex?
Yes, please do.
So I'd agree with what everyone said, but I kind of have I don't know if it's a different perspective at all, but just something to add, which is, you know, I do have a very animistic view of the world. So I don't believe, you know, one of the things that I get not upset about, but I think we have, as a race, we have a very human-centric view of the world. And, you know, a lot of the work that I do around ritual and ceremony is outdoors. So for me, David's right, every place is sacred, But you know, that means for me that if I'm going out into a forest or something, the forest is full of elemental spirits. It's, you know, the trees have spirits, you know, the mycelial network, all of that kind of thing. So, you know, for me, I don't imagine just rocking up and doing ceremony in somebody else's front room kind of thing, as it were. So that sacred space for me is everywhere is sacred, but for me, we're in relation with a whole realm of spirit as well. So it's also about permission. It's about, you know, as you say, choosing a space energetically that feels appropriate, but also, you know, for me, asking permission of the spirits of the land, of the space, that kind of thing feels really important. And I think we're all implying that, but for me, it just bears out this kind of notion of, it's not just, you know, in the natural world, it's not just a human world, it's we're part of a greater whole, as it were.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. So how can someone be sure that a sacred ceremony is held safely? David, do you want to take this one?
Well, it's like the question before. You have to trust your instinct, you know, and if you are going to attend to somebody for healing or whatever, the good thing is to have a prior. Something happened here.
Is everything okay?
Yes. Sorry. And sorry, I forgot where I was.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, we were talking about how someone can hold sacred ceremonies safely, and how you know that. Yeah.
Yes. So you have to use your heart, and your heart, with an open heart, with love. That's the key.
Thank you.
And also to take it like before, you have to call to the facilitator or a shaman prior to a ceremony or to a consultation or something, and feel if it's right for you or not, you know. Like I said before I had my first ceremony of ayahuasca, I was 3 years prior to that I wanted to make it, but every time I meet somebody was not feeling good, you know, my heart was telling me not with this person. So I waited it until my heart says, yes, this person is right, feels right. So I don't know, just have a prior interview with the shaman or facilitator or medicine woman or man. That's very, very important. And also, like you said, also my best presentation card is from word to mouth or mouth to mouth, you know, and also the testimonies of people, because it's not me saying I'm the best shaman or I am this. No. It's maybe you saying, well, I had a wonderful experience with this guy, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just the best presentation card is that testimonies and the word of mouth.
Thank you. So JCat, how can someone be sure that a sacred ceremony is held safely?
I feel like we've gone over this question. I feel like everyone said, like, you know, I think it's about how you feel it out and the recommendation and just really understanding that you're taking yourself to somebody. And I think, was it Julian that was saying that no, I think it was Chris that was saying about you could do some of this yourself if you're not sure, if you haven't had a recommendation. I think it's really important that, and Talia said as well, it's about feeling it out. It's about feeling like you are going to somebody that you connect with, and having a telephone call or connecting with them beforehand is really important. I mean, that would be my advice. Or going to some friends and asking in the community, going online, asking in the community, getting it from somewhere that's been recommended, I think would be my top, you know, tip for people looking for help and making sure they're being held by somebody that's responsible and that they're going to feel loved and taken care with. So.
Perfect. Is there anything that you would say though, because I know that we maybe touched on a similar kind of question, but is there anything that someone could look out for that would make them kind of feel like, oh, this person isn't practicing safely? Or is it just...
I think you know, like you'd for me, you would probably feel it out yourself. You know, you'd have to use your intuition. I think it's really important to speak to somebody, to get a voice vibration, to ask questions, to really feel that out. I mean, and at the end of the day, you make that decision, you know, for yourself. But I think, you know, that's the only way I feel that I would do it, you know, talking from experience. I've done a lot of my work on my own. You know, the Druidry, the witchcraft stuff. I've done a lot of stuff on my own. I think working on your own is a good way to start to do that, to try and bring in some feeling and connection, and then maybe going to somebody if you can't get a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. That makes
yourself, just sitting with yourself, you know, that's a good way of feeling it out. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And Tylia, did you want to add anything to this?
Not really. I think the guys just, filled it all in. Go with how you feel. And again, you know, bringing it back to the whole polarity, if someone was to go to somebody who wasn't, it's potentially a lesson that they need to learn. It's part of their soul's journey and their soul's growth, that they would go there. There'll be lessons in that. You know, it's all divinely inspired.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Could I just add something?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Just particularly when we're talking about working with entheogenic plants or other substances, one of the questions I like to hear people ask is, are you taking any other medications or anything that might be contraindicated with the medicine that we're going to work with? Yeah. Because it's important to listen to your heart. That's undoubtedly true. And Talia, you're right. Sometimes mistakes are things that give us an opportunity to learn. But there are combinations of substances, both with the phenethylamine family, the cactus family, and also with the tryptamine family, with things like ayahuasca and mushrooms and so on, which can be dangerous and possibly even fatal. So one of the questions I would listen out for is whether the shaman asks you whether or not you're taking any other medication or whether or not there's any other stuff going on, particularly if they're going to involve you in using a psychoactive substance.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's very important what you say, because, you know, most of the people, you know, they can have like these pills for allergies, you know, and they don't know, like with ayahuasca, the MAO inhibit, they can make so it's very important what you say. Always I ask people if they are taking medicines, which medicines are they taking? And then depending on what, I would go further with them, you know, about that, because yes, it's very, very important. And a lot of people, they don't do it. They just let anybody come in and they don't know.
Yeah,
David, I'm really grateful that you said that. And I'm grateful that you do that in your practice, because on a number of occasions, I have observed people not doing this. And you know, I know enough of the pharmacology and the medicine to know that this can be very difficult for people, and it can potentially be fatal. That's not an overstatement. There are certain combinations. Psilocybin mushrooms meets lithium, which is an unusual but nevertheless a used antidepressant. Very, very, very unwise. Yeah. So yes, listen to your heart, but also feed your head as well, and see whether or not this person who's going to give you a medicine, and a medicine is only a medicine because of its dosage, and a poison is only a poison because of its dosage. And if the dosage meets you in such a situation where there's another contraindicated medicine, things could go very badly wrong. So that's a question to listen out for. I would suggest to think about the experience level of the practitioner that you're engaged with.
They would probably want to get a bit of background information about you as well. If I'm holding space for somebody, I want to get a feel for their story and what sort of energy I'm going to be transmuting during that ceremony for them. So yeah, being a little bit formal and sort of maybe asking them a few questions, definitely background and stuff like that, definitely. Thanks for adding that, Julian.
Perfect. Thank you so much for clarifying and clearing that up. So final question. If someone was called to holding, sorry, I'll just say it again. If someone was called to holding sacred shamanic ceremonies for themselves, right, and they felt called to hold these ceremonies for other people without previous experience, what advice would you give them, JCat?
A lot of the stuff that we've been saying this evening, especially what Julian's been saying about if you're using any substances, it's really important that you've got some sort of questionnaire that you ask, that you're, you know, these people that are coming to you for this healing, that you're responsible, and that you take, you know, the right precautions beforehand in terms of like, you know, what are these people giving you, and asking the right, you know, asking the right questions to the individual, so that they have a, that they know that, you know, that you're holding a good space for that, for them people, and that you're not doing anything that could do them any harm, because at the end of the day, you know, the top priority is the safety of the individuals and the responsibility that you take on as a facilitator. So, and also, you know, you need to think about holding space for people isn't easy, especially if people have got traumas and they've got things that are happening to them. You've got to be able to deal with every situation. So I would say tread very carefully if you're thinking about holding space for people and you haven't got any experience. I would say that you need to learn to hold your own space and do a lot of healing yourself before you start thinking about, you know, holding space for people that are potentially vulnerable, people that maybe have had traumas, and people that are you know, wanting to have an experience but maybe aren't ready for it. So, and if you're not used to holding that space, it's dangerous as far as I'm concerned. So, I think it's all about experience. It's all about your own personal growth, and, you know, working on yourself before you can hold the space. But if you are called to it and you've got good loving intentions, and, you know, you feel that you can hold the space and you've asked all the questions, especially if we're dealing with substances, because it is dangerous. And I think that you need to step back from that and find out more about that before you do that. So that would be my advice on holding space.
Thank you. Krish, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I kind of feel pretty strongly about this. Is, you know, in the context of being a coach, there are lots of things you can see on Instagram or whatever, of like, oh, become a life coach in 2 days and that kind of thing. And excuse my language, it's bollocks. You know, it's like, if you feel a calling, you know, to our best knowledge, you know, for someone to go through druidic training from, they would start, it would be a childhood thing, and to our best knowledge, it was something like 19 to 20 years worth of training just to even get to a point. And now, obviously, we're not always going to go through that amount, but, you know, you've got to do the work. If you're setting yourself up as some kind of practitioner, you've got to do the work. You've got to get educated. You know, I really like the way Julian put it, in terms of, you know, have a good heart, but have a clear mind. And you have to know the container you're setting up. You have to know the knowledge of all the things that could happen. And, you know, even if all you're doing is effectively, you know, banging a drum for someone, as JCat said, if that's not set up properly, it's not set up in the right way, you know, people can have reactions to all sorts of things. So, you know, you've got, there's a reason why medical practitioners go through years of training, all that kind of thing. And this is no different. You've got to do the work. You've got to get the training, and you have to have experience of practice. It's as simple as that for me.
Talia, what advice would you have for someone?
So if somebody was getting a call in to hold space for other people, first of all, do a lot of research, look into it. My first point of call would be to find somebody that you resonate and maybe ask them to mentor you, take you under their wing. That would probably be the most ideal situation. We don't always have that privilege, and sometimes we do have to learn. Like myself, I learned through my own healing, my own process, and then I went on and collected, you know, qualifications in this, that, and the other, and sort of created my own sort of way of doing what I do. So yeah, that would be my first point of call, and just on yourself. That is the first. You should be your first patient. Is yourself. So if you're feeling that calling, and just go inward with it. Just, you know, internalize. Because often, you know, I've noticed this myself. You know, in my younger years, I wanted to help everybody. And it was really an inward expression of me needing to help myself. but I was externalizing it in wanting to help other people. So I would, yeah, you turn that onto yourself first of all, and really go within on yourself, and then feel if it is your calling. A lot of people I've seen, you know, will go to a shaman or medicine man, woman, will do like a ceremony of plant medicine, and then they want to be it, but they need to do a little bit more work, because we've all got our own unique soul paths and our own gifts, and although it's very attractive at the time because it's been so wonderful for them, they still need to go within and do their own work before they can start holding and facilitating space for other people.
I really resonated with that point that you just said, by the way, about getting that feeling of wanting to help other people, and that being a reflection of you wanting to help yourself. I've been there. So that really resonated. So yeah, David, what advice would you have for anyone that wanted to get into kind of healing, or they felt the call and hadn't had previous experience?
Well, I would say, like, talking about any psychoactive plant, you know, you never know, especially if you never had it before, you never know what is going to happen there. So my advice is that if you're going to do it for the first time or second or third time, always do it with somebody guiding you, because you don't know what is going to happen, you know. This can trigger your subconscious, and we store there a lot of issues in our life. Each one of us is programmed different. So you cannot tell anybody it's going to be like this, because you never know how is it going to be to each person. So always, yes, you have this. If you have the skills to do it, and if you have been encouraging into this prior to the first time of ayahuasca, let's say, do it with somebody that knows, you know, especially the first times, until you get familiarized to the effects, to the side effects, and then you can try it to yourself, because yes, you have to do it to yourself one time or two, because there's a lot of superstition in all this as well, you know. So knowing that you have all the power with you, because you have the power, don't give it away. But yes, always, if it's the first times that you're going to do it with somebody that knows or has the skills to guide you, or guide a group, or whatever, you know.
Perfect, thank you. And Julian, do you have any advice for anyone feeling the call?
I think what Talia said was very wise about recognizing when we are actually needing to focus on our own healing rather than our offer of service to the wider community, which is a laudable and good thing to do, but isn't always the right strategy. I would say that it is essential for people who are doing, let's call it this kind of space holding kind of work, that they are engaged actively in their own practice, meditation, body work with entheogenics, if that's part of their story, so that they engage with that themselves on their own terms. I would suggest that they need to be part of a community of practice. The most valuable thing we have as human beings is the other spirits we live our lives with, and the spirits we pay most of attention to generally are other humans. So to have a community of practice of other people around you is essential. I would also say that if you believe you are being called to hold space in this way, I would ask which spirit is calling you, by which I mean, if a mate of yours has said, hey, David, you really know about ayahuasca. Could I come and sit with you and take ayahuasca? That's David's call from a spirit, from a friend. If David wakes up one day and says, oh, I feel like giving people ayahuasca now. I've taken a few journeys myself. The guy who was running the ceremony seemed like nice and everyone appreciated him. I'd like to do that too. That's probably not the call. That's probably a call where you should just put the phone down and ignore that until such time as people have enough respect for you within whatever social community you're in, whether you call yourself a shaman or not, that they come to you and they ask for your help. And if you can say, well, I'm doing my own work, I'm part of a community of practitioners who exchange ideas and knowledge and best practice, I am a person who believes I can do this in the best possible way for you, and I'll give it a go. Like, that's the call. Then act on that call. If you're in that place to do those things and you're in that situation, then the call has come and you should ideally answer it. But wait till you're asked, I would say, rather than looking at someone like David and saying, hey, I'd love to be like David. He's amazing. I could do this too. Yeah, the time is not right yet. Wait.
I love that you pointed that out. Thank you so much. I think it's so vital. And thank you, all of you, because I just feel so grateful right now just hearing all of your advice. And I just think it's going to be so powerful to educate and empower everyone else who are kind of coming into this journey right now of their self-remembrance path, if you like. So I'm just looking at the Q&A, and there's only one question. Oh, there's two questions now. Or is that still one? I'm going to take that as that my questions have been so thorough and you guys have answered so thoroughly that there are no questions. No, I'm joking. There's one. So we'll take this one. So has any wisdom come through? Oh, sorry. Has any wisdom come through to any of you during your own plant medicine journeys regarding how you term your service to humanity in the 21st century? Who would like to take that one? Shall I just pass that back? David, you want to take that?
Yes, of course, we gain a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, because when you have a amplified state of mind, you can see different. You can access to different realms, to parallel worlds. Probably that we don't see it right now, but yes, you gain a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom with plant medicine. Yes.
Yeah, the end question was just about any wisdom come through for your plant medicine journeys in terms of your service to humanity in the 21st century.
Yes, once you have all these plants, you become a better person. The best of David comes out, and people can feel it because you vibrate it. So people doesn't know, oh, did you shave your hair? You look good. But what it is that you are vibrating love and they can sense it. So yes.
Perfect, thank you. Did anyone else want to add?
I kind of had a bit of initiation when I was on plant medicine. I was sort of feeling the calling up until then to hold space for other people. And it was during a plant medicine that I literally was just told, you have to work for spirit. I saw all these medicine men and women, sort of like a whole lineage of them, and they sort of all were sort of telling me, yes, this is what you need to do. And I just handed myself over and spent the rest of the ceremony on my hands and knees, having handed myself over. And my life has never been the same since. And then every time since then, when I do medicine, I always do something different in my healings and therapies afterwards. So although I might not know it or at the time, I definitely have this resonance of something downloads and comes through me that I then put into practice in the 3D, in my 3D reality. So yeah, that's my take.
Perfect. Krish, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I mean, like I say, plant medicine isn't really part of my practice, so there's not that. But that being said, I think there's plenty of download and plenty of spirit contact that's sort of coming through now. And I'm just, there are so many people waking up now, aren't there? That I think for those of us that have been on the path for a long time, that place of guidance is kind of really now, as it were. But what I'm finding is, I think, a lot of people say this when they get older, the older I get, the more I realize how little I know, and the more I realize how many questions I have. So, I think if there's a piece of wisdom for me, it's live the questions rather than seek the answers, because that always seems to keep my ego in check and lead me on the right path, I think. So that's what I would say.
That's insightful, thank you.
I had one more thing as well, because it's not all about plant medicine. Again, I had a massive epiphany off of plant medicine, and that was when I really went into some pain. So pain is a massive teacher So yeah, and my message then was that we are all love, and that's kind of the way I'm leading my whatever I can offer humanity is we are all love, and it is all love. And so yeah, that's the message I got for the 21st century, but I don't think that hurts to have that message for any century, that we should be leading from heart and love.
I hope that answered your question. We've just had another one come in. So as shamans, if someone comes to you and says that they feel a blockage in their spiritual vision, what do you do? Who would like to take that one?
Well, they do the work. We don't do the work. They do their own work. So it's not really that what we can do to them. It's what they can do to themselves. That's what I would say.
If somebody said that to me and said I'm having a problem with my spiritual vision, I would
Tyler, you've gone on silent.
You mute your mic.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't know how that happens.
That's so weird.
On purpose, the divine. What was we saying again?
As shamans, if someone comes to you and says that they feel a blockage in their spiritual vision,
yeah.
What would you do, or what would you say to them?
I would say that you're thinking too much. Switch this off, meditate, and see what comes through. Often this is the biggest. The thinking is the biggest obstacle, and when you quieten that, when you just switch off and you just let it go, all the insights, they just start flowing. They really do. If I don't know the answer to something, I go, you know what, I'm just going to put that on the shelf, and I'm going to leave that to spirit, and then all of a sudden I'll go ding. It's the way the subconscious and the conscious work. I learned all of that in hypnotherapy, which was quite handy. Is while this is all chattering away, this can't take the filing system out, and it can't give you the answers, and we know all the answers. We just don't know we know the answers, and this is too busy talking to us to let us hear them. So if somebody said they were having problems with their vision, yeah, I would say shut up in your head and yeah, give yourself a bit of peace in the mind.
Thank you. J-Cat, did you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I think like it would be important, I would say to them, is to go out into nature and sit with themselves and be quiet and to just sit with that. I think the important part about if you've got blockages or anything that's you think is stopping you is being able to, you know, get this to flow again. And I think being in nature, chanting, you know, mantras, just finding that creator inside you, trying to find opening the heart, really, because like Tali was saying about the headspace, it's about trying to get out of this space, the thinking space, and the creative force that we are here in the heart. It's there's where you unblock it, basically. So it is a tuning in somehow, sound healing. You know, there's so many great tools out there now to help you unblock and clear this stuff. And obviously, you know, there's different medicines out there which do connect you to those spaces inside you, and raising your consciousness and going to those places where you feel the freedom and the insights to know that, you know, you can do, be, have, and create whatever you want, you know, and be in the magic, you know, abracadabra, you know. I speak as I create. It's like, yes, you know, create what you want from the heart space. So that's what I would say on that one.
Perfect, thank you. And Julian, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I guess one of the things that comes from lots of shamanic sessions, whether they're with entheogenic substances or not, is that people come up with a new metaphor to understand what's going on for them. And if the person is coming to me with a metaphor, my spiritual vision is blocked, I would say, well, okay, well, what we have to do then is let's explore how we might get to a metaphor about how that could be, that blockage could be pushed away or removed or dissolved, or whatever the metaphor is that you need to explore. Very often when people go into medicine space, let's call it, into this, whether it's through the drum or whether it's through ayahuasca or any number of these things, They get an opportunity to see their metaphors put in front of them, very often visually with something like ayahuasca. So they see what's going on, and then they can see the possibility of how those things might be transformed and changed. So I'd say, brilliant. Your spiritual vision is blocked. That's fantastic. That means you've got a picture in your head of what's going on. All we need to do is we need to find how we transform that picture into, well, how might you imagine it to be if your spiritual vision was not blocked? What would that be like? How would that feel? What might be the stages that we might imagine? Because what we do here is we build this with our experiences in these held spaces so that people can do their own healing. So I wouldn't prescribe them anything. I would ask them what they thought would be the answer. And then I would work with them to help facilitate spaces in which they could discover the answer for themselves. Because I'm not the shaman, I'm not the healer, they are. And so they have made the diagnosis, and I'm just there to kind of offer them a blanket, some water, tell them they're doing fine, and they can do the work.
Yeah, and I want to add also something, that understandings, they come by itself, you know, like after a ceremony of ayahuasca, you receive so much information during the ceremony, but it's not just that day, that night, what the information is coming. Then there's an integration part after that, you know, that you have to integrate everything what you live, you have to integrate it in your everyday life. But it's like magic, you know, the understanding, it comes by itself. I don't have to tell you, oh, did you understand this and this and this and this and that? No, I don't know how, but it comes to you. You understand. And it's very hard to transmit it with words, but it just happened.
David just touched on a point that I thought of earlier, forgot to mention, is that a genuine shaman is often caring about your aftercare. They want to make sure you're okay afterwards. They're not going to, because of this exact reason that you sort of get epiphanies and stuff afterwards, they will want to check in maybe with you afterwards, or at least offer that and just let people know that if you need me, you know, post ceremony, I'm here. So that would be another thing to consider.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Is there anything before we close that you would like to add, or suggest or advise to anyone?
I would like to say something, you know, there's a lot of superstition in all this, you know, even if you go to a shaman in Peru, like somebody, I don't remember who was telling that they had the evil eye, that a shaman gives something bad to happen, something bad to other person, you know. So there's a lot of superstition on that because the mind is very powerful. So if you believe that somebody is going to harm you, of course he's going to harm you. Or like if a lot of people, they come here with a lot of stones and items, you know, like I can say this is going to protect me. So can I put this on me? I say, yes, you can put it on you, but what happened the day that you go out of your house without this? Who's protecting you? So don't give your power to an item that you think is going to protect you, because the power, you have the power.
The Wizard of Oz, she had the power all along.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry in case I didn't explain myself, but like I say, English is not my first language, and I was trying to look for the best words to make myself a clear understanding, but in case I didn't, sorry for that.
David, you were perfect.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're absolutely perfect.
You were perfect. So yes, thank you so much to the expert panel. I am so grateful for your time, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your experiences to help educate, empower and involve the minds of many. As you know, this is going to be recorded and it'll be up on the YouTube channel in a couple of weeks. So a lot of people will come back and re-watch or watch it for the first time and get a lot of wisdom and knowledge from this because of you guys. So thank you so much. And again, thank you to all the attendees as well. Thank you for attending. Appreciate all your questions, appreciate your time watching, and much love and gratitude to all of you. I'm so thankful. Thank
Alex,
you.
just to break in right at the end, just a big thank you to you for bringing us together as well, for doing this amazing work that you do. You're the visionary who brought all of this together, so thank you.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate you all. I'm so grateful. I can't even express how grateful I am.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.